Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Sit down, have a pie, drink a cup of coffee and enjoy today's story. The Ballad of Barnaby and the Blue Moon. Part 1. The Burden. In the dust-choked hills of 1930s Mississippi, where the red clay roads cracked under the relentless sun, lived a man named Silas Grinch. Silas was a hauler, a man who made his living moving scrap metal, old timber, and broken dreams from one side of the county to the other. He was a man with a heart as hard as the iron he peddled and pockets deeper than a dry well. Though he never let a penny see the light of day. Silas owned a mule named Barnaby. In his youth, Barnaby might have been a fine specimen of Missouri stock, tall at the shoulder, with ears that stood at attention and eyes that held a spark of intelligence. But years under Silas's whip had reduced him to a shadow. Barnaby's ribs played a grim tune against his skin, visible like the rungs of a broken ladder. His coat, once a rich chocolate brown, was now patchy and dull, matted with the dust of 1,000 miles. Silas believed in a simple, cruel economy: work the animal until it drops, then work it some more. Feed cost money, rest cost money. So, Barnaby got neither. Every morning before the sun kissed the horizon, Barnaby was hitched to a wagon piled high with cast-iron stoves or waterlogged oak. He pulled until his muscles screamed and his hooves bled. And every evening, as the crickets began their nightly chorus, Silas would unhitch him near the edge of the property, a barren patch of scrubland where nothing grew but thistles and disappointment. "Go on now," Silas would grumble, spitting tobacco juice onto the dry earth. "Find your own supper. I ain't running a charity here." Night after night, Barnaby wandered the perimeter of the farm, his stomach tying itself into knots. He chewed on dry twigs and dead grass, dreaming of sweet oats and cool water. He was a creature fading from the world, his spirit eroding with every passing sunset. Part 2. The Stranger in the Shadows. One particularly humid night, under the sliver of a waxing moon, Barnaby was nosing through a pile of dry leaves near the creek bed, hoping to find a grub or a forgotten root. He was so weak he stumbled over his own hooves. "Rough night, partner?" The voice was smooth, like molasses dripping off a spoon. Barnaby froze, his long ears swiveling. Emerging from the brush was a coyote. He wasn't like the skittish, mange-ridden creatures Barnaby usually saw. This coyote had a sleek, gray-gold coat and eyes that gleamed with a sharp, terrifying intelligence. He moved with a confident swagger, a creature who owned the night. "I didn't mean to intrude," Barnaby wheezed, his voice raspy from dehydration. "I'm just looking for a bite to eat." The coyote sat on his haunches and scratched his ear nonchalantly. "Looking? You look like you haven't found anything since the Hoover administration." "The name's Rusty." "Barnaby," the mule replied, lowering his head in shame. "And you're right. My master, he doesn't believe in feeding the help." Rusty chuckled, a sound like dry leaves rustling together. "Humans, they hoard everything and share nothing. But look at you, Barnaby, you've got the frame of a prizefighter. But you're wasting away. Why do you stay?" "I have nowhere to go," Barnaby sighed, "and I'm too weak to run." Rusty stood up and trotted closer, inspecting the mule. "Well, tonight is your lucky night, Barnaby. You've just made a friend who knows the lay of the land. You see, I don't believe in starving. It's bad for the complexion." "There's no food here, Rusty, just rocks and dust," Barnaby said. "Not here, you old fool," Rusty grinned, showing a row of sharp, white teeth. "Over the ridge, about a mile south. Have you ever heard of the McGregor estate?" Barnaby's eyes widened. Everyone knew the McGregor place. It was the only farm in the county that was thriving, thanks to an underground spring and old man McGregor's obsession with prize-winning vegetables. "The McGregor place?" Barnaby whispered. "But the fences, the dogs." "Details." Rusty waved a paw dismissively. "I found a breach in the back fence, hidden by the blackberry bushes. I go there every night. Sweet corn, crisp carrots, cucumbers the size of your head, and pumpkins that taste like sugar. It's a buffet, Barnaby, and frankly, I can't eat it all myself. I need a partner with a big appetite." Barnaby's stomach gave a loud, treacherous growl. The thought of a crisp, orange carrot snapped something inside him. The fear of the whip was suddenly outweighed by the pain of hunger. "Lead the way," Barnaby said. Part 3, The Feast and the Transformation. The journey was slow, but the promise of food gave Barnaby a reserve of energy he didn't know he possessed. They navigated the woods silently, Rusty leading with the stealth of a ghost, Barnaby following as quietly as a mule can. When they reached the breach in the fence, Rusty slipped through effortlessly. He held back the vines for Barnaby, who squeezed through, his patchy coat snagging on thorns. But he didn't care. When he looked up, Barnaby thought he had died and gone to heaven. The moonlight illuminated rows upon rows of perfection. There were stalks of corn standing like soldiers, heavy with cobs. There were mounds of dirt bursting with the orange tops of carrots. There were vines of melons and patches of leafy cabbage. "Dig in, big guy," Rusty whispered, "but keep it quiet." Barnaby didn't need to be told twice. He took a bite of a cucumber, the cool water and crunch overwhelming his senses. He moved to the corn, stripping the sweet kernels with a hunger that was almost violent. For the first time in years, his belly felt the weight of real food. They ate until the first hint of dawn began to gray the eastern sky. "We have to go," Rusty urged, nudging Barnaby's leg. "If McGregor catches us, he'll turn you into glue and me into a fur coat." They slipped out just in time. When Silas hitched Barnaby up that morning, he noticed the mule seemed to have a bit more spring in his step. Though he said nothing. This became their ritual. Every night, Barnaby would wait for Silas to pass out from his moonshine, and then he would meet Rusty at the creek. Night after night, they feasted. The change in Barnaby was nothing short of miraculous. Within a month, his ribs vanished beneath a layer of healthy muscle and fat. His coat shed its dullness and grew in thick and glossy. His eyes cleared. He walked with his head held high, his neck arching proudly. Even the heavy wagon felt light as a feather now. Silas was baffled. "I don't feed the beast a lick. And he's getting fat as a tick," he muttered to himself. But he didn't question it too closely. A strong mule meant more work. And that was good for business. Part 4, The Dangerous Pride. Prosperity, however, has a way of warping the mind. As Barnaby's body grew strong, his memory of the lean times began to fade. He started to forget the pain of hunger and the fear of the whip. In its place grew a sense of invincibility. He wasn't just a survivor anymore, in his mind. He was the king of the night. It was late August, the height of the harvest. The moon was a heavy, swollen orb of gold hanging low in the sky, a supermoon. The old-timers called it. The air was thick with the scent of honeysuckle and ripening fruit. Barnaby and Rusty were in the garden. Barnaby had just finished demolishing a patch of prize-winning radishes and was feeling particularly euphoric. The sugar from the vegetables and the sheer joy of being alive rushed to his head. He stood in the middle of the pumpkin patch, looked up at the moon, and sighed happily. "Rusty," Barnaby said, his voice deep and resonant. "Look at that moon. Have you ever seen anything so beautiful?" Rusty was busy digging up a sweet potato. He paused, his ears twitching nervously. "It's a nice moon, Barnaby. Keeps the light good for eating. Now hush up and finish that cabbage so we can leave." Barnaby shook his head slowly, a dreamy smile on his face. "You have no soul, Rusty. You're a creature of the dirt. Always digging, always hiding. You don't stop to appreciate the majesty of the moment." Rusty stopped chewing. He looked at the mule with narrowed eyes. "The majesty of the moment keeps us alive because we stay quiet." "What's gotten into you?" "I feel inspired," Barnaby declared, puffing out his chest. "I feel the spirit of my ancestors. They were noble creatures, you know. They carried kings and prophets. Tonight, I feel a song coming on." Rusty's blood ran cold. He dropped the sweet potato. "A song? Barnaby, are you out of your mind? You're a mule. You don't sing. You bray. And if you bray here, you'll wake up every dog in a 5-mile radius." "It is not braying," Barnaby snapped, offended. "It is a baritone aria of the soul. You wild dogs just howl at the moon like barbarians. My voice has timbre. It has power. I bet old man McGregor has never heard true music. He might even come out and applaud." Rusty scrambled over to Barnaby. his tail tucked between his legs in genuine fear. "Barnaby, listen to me. I'm your friend. I saved you from starving. I know how this world works. If you make a sound, the only applause you're going to get is from the barrel of a 12-gauge shotgun. We are thieves. Thieves don't sing." Barnaby looked down at the coyote with a look of pitying arrogance. The warning sounded like jealousy to him now. Rusty was just a small, frightened scavenger who couldn't understand the greatness of a mule in his prime. "You worry too much, little friend," Barnaby said, closing his eyes and tilting his head back. "Art cannot be silenced by fear. The world needs to hear me." "No, Barnaby, stop," Rusty hissed, backing away toward the fence. "Don't be a fool." Part 5, The Aria and the Aftermath. But the warnings fell on deaf ears. Barnaby took a deep breath, filling his massive lungs with the cool night air. He visualized the note, a high, triumphant sound that would express all his joy and strength. He opened his mouth and let it out. It was not a song. It was a cacophony. It was the sound of a rusty gate hinge screaming against a chalkboard, amplified by a megaphone. Hee-haw, H-E-E-haw, hee quadruple A-W-W-W-W. The sound shattered the silence of the night. It echoed off the barn, bounced off the distant hills, and rattled the windows of the farmhouse. It was loud, abrasive, and utterly undeniable. Barnaby, lost in his delusion, thought it was magnificent. He closed his eyes tighter, putting more heart into the second verse. H-A-W-W-W. Inside the farmhouse, the lights snapped on instantly. Rusty didn't wait. The moment the first note left Barnaby's mouth, the coyote was already a blur of motion, sprinting for the hole in the fence. He paused for only a second at the boundary, looking back at the swaying, braying donkey with a mixture of sadness and frustration. "Goodbye, you glorious idiot," Rusty whispered, and vanished into the darkness. Suddenly, the back door of the farmhouse flew open with a bang. Old Man McGregor stormed out, wearing his long johns and wielding a double-barreled shotgun. Behind him were two massive hounds, barking with the fury of hell itself. "Who's in my garden?" McGregor roared. He shone a flashlight into the pumpkin patch. The beam landed squarely on Barnaby, who was just preparing for a high C. Barnaby froze. The light blinded him. The applause he was expecting was replaced by the terrifying sound of dogs snarling and the click-clack of a shotgun being cocked. "Well, I'll be damned," McGregor spat. "It's a mule, eating my prize pumpkins." The reality of the situation crashed down on Barnaby. The artistic trance vanished, replaced by the primal terror of a prey animal. He turned to run, but his heavy hooves sank into the soft-tilled earth of the cucumber patch. "Get him, boys," McGregor yelled. The dogs were on him in seconds, nipping at his heels. Barnaby kicked and scrambled, panic overriding his senses. He tried to make for the fence, but McGregor was there, swinging a heavy wooden fence post he'd grabbed from a pile. Thwack! The wood connected with Barnaby's flank. The pain was blinding. "You think you can eat my crop and sing about it?" McGregor shouted, bringing the stick down again. Barnaby brayed again, but this time it wasn't a song of joy, it was a scream of pain. He stumbled, crashing through the tomato trellises, turning the pristine garden into a wreck of smashed fruit and tangled wire. He barely managed to find the gap in the fence. He squeezed through, tearing his skin on the barbed wire, the dogs snapping inches from his tail. He galloped into the woods, his breath coming in ragged gasps, his body throbbing with bruises. Part 6, The Silence of Experience. Barnaby didn't stop running until he reached the barren scrubland near Silas's shack. He collapsed onto the hard dirt, his legs shaking uncontrollably. His beautiful coat was torn and covered in mud. His stomach, once full and happy, churned with nausea. He lay there for a long time, the pain in his ribs a sharp reminder of his folly. As the sun began to rise, casting long, cruel shadows across the land, he saw a movement in the bushes. Rusty stepped out. The coyote didn't come close this time. He sat at a distance, watching Barnaby with cool, detached eyes. Barnaby groaned. "Rusty, you were right. I should have listened." Rusty tilted his head. "I told you, Barnaby. There's a time for everything. A time to eat, and a time to run. But there is never a time for a thief to announce his presence. I wanted to feel important. Barnaby whispered. I thought I was special. You were special, Rusty said softly. You were smart. And you were fed. Now, you're just beaten and bruised. You mistook luck for talent, my friend, and you mistook a warning for jealousy. Rusty stood up and turned toward the deep woods. Where are you going? Barnaby asked weakly. Moving on, Rusty replied. McGregor will be watching that garden like a hawk now. The good times are over here. I have to find a partner who knows when to keep his mouth shut. With that, the coyote trotted away, disappearing into the morning mist, leaving Barnaby alone with his pain and the upcoming day of hard labor under Silas's whip. The moral. In the quiet that followed, the lesson settled over the hills like the morning dew, when a friend who knows the lay of the land gives you advice. It is wisdom born of scars. To ignore it in favor of your own ego is to invite disaster. There is a time to shine, and there is a time to stay silent. True intelligence isn't just about knowing how to get what you want, it's knowing how to keep it. And often, the loudest voice in the room is the one that ends up paying the highest price. So, friends, if you ever find yourself in a garden of plenty, eat your fill and enjoy your fortune. But remember Barnaby, never let your pride get louder than your common sense. Author's note: I hope you enjoyed this American retelling of the classic Panchatantra tale. It's a reminder that sometimes, silence really is golden. I'm broadcasting this story from the digital ether. Where in the world are you reading from? Drop a comment below and let's swap stories. Thank you for listening. Please like and subscribe so you don't miss any meaningful stories.